ideas that were out there. It was great.
But did you find it was difficult to sell the constant sort of new imagery that Abel was trying to come up with, or when you were designing these images, were the clients resistant? I mean, how did that work? I mean, I'm curious.
Well, as we just experienced in the political world, in those days, and probably still, you lived or died by your numbers. And all commercials were researched very extensively. And even to the point of, maybe it's naive technology now, but closed environments like this where each seat is wired to check for perspiration, heartbeat of this person sitting in a seat while watching a commercial, and pupil dilation could be measured, recall, how much can you explain what you just saw. And so these commercials were tested very, very crucially, very carefully. And in particular with the Levi's client, at one point, I clearly remember before the bean counters took over, at one point, one of the key people at Levi's said, look, Chris, we have no idea what you're doing here. I would show them some work, and they'd say, well, we have no idea what this is. But whatever you're doing is really working, so just keep doing it. and so these commercials had great numbers. They had incredible recall. They were selling products, and that was the ammunition that we had, creative people at the time. There would be, sure, there was a lot of resistance because people like to blend in, especially, that's one of the things I guess they teach you in business school, is that you get yourself in a position where you can never take a hit. Somebody else is always responsible. You're never responsible. So somebody had to be responsible. But these commercials went through the roof. The trademark commercial was so impactful that it was actually almost pulled, and it was studied for by the FTC, is it? I'm not sure who it is, but they thought there were subliminal images in there. There was attack by religious groups. There was, and they almost, because it went through the roof, it had a recall that had never been even seen before on the charts. And so they didn't know what to do with it.
I read that after Bubbles, sales of 7-Up went up 125% or something like that. Like, it was just started the whole 7-Up thing. It was just an incredible experience.
I'll tell you, the Kawasaki, We Know Why You Ride commercial that I did was on the air one day.
Really?
Oh, yeah, because, I mean, it said, buy a motorcycle, take a lot of drugs, go as fast as you can. And I think the speed limit then was when they had dropped it down to 55 or whatever. So the federal government said, get that thing. But everything always had impact.
Yeah, that commercial was pulled too, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I just have one story because I want to tell a great story about Bob. In the middle of the trademark commercial, Richard being one of the many people making $1.280 a week there, but things would go up and down financially, as we all know, with the company. And Richard had 2 young children, and you were buying a house at the time, and you were, I think, in escrow, or trying to get yourself into escrow. I don't know if you know this story or not. And I think Bob owed you a shitload of money. He owed you a lot of money. He hadn't paid you in a long time. And I had to, and we were over budget, naturally. So not only did I have to pay for the commercial, but I had to get some money really fast because Bob wanted to get the money to you because you were going to lose that house. You didn't have the money to close that escrow. I don't know if you remember this or not. So,
I don't remember that.
So you do remember that?
No, I don't.
So I basically blackmailed the people at Levi's and at the advertising agency, and I think it was maybe $35,000. I said, we have to have $35,000 here tomorrow, or this commercial is not going to survive. It's not going to live, and you've already got too much invested in it to kill it right now.
I owe you a drink.
And even though that company was probably
I'm buying you a big ass libation.
near crashing on the rocks, the whole company, Bob took that money and gave it to you, and you closed the escrow on your house.
Yes.
It was the house in Pacific Palisades.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Kobe, my daughter, is right here. Who was, when we were at Abel's, she was a little
Bob kept a
girl.
roof over you.
Wait, where's Kobe?
Right here.
Oh my God! Hi.
I don't know if we ever talked about that. I never
No,
told
but
this to it.
like I say,
but
I owe you.
it was really dicey, and I had to really. I made a lot of enemies at the time because it was like, if you don't have that money here tomorrow, you're not going to have a commercial.
But when that thing scored 58 on the Burke testing,
59. Yeah.
Everybody 59.
Yeah.
Everybody forgot about that.
The average commercial in those days, you got a home run if you got 30 plus. If you got 31, 32% recall and people recalling some content. This commercial scored a 59. So it couldn't be measured. The numbers were so big. But there's a lot of great stories about Bob, but that's one of my favorite. And a lot of people didn't know that, but he got that money to you and you got that house. It was a house in Pacific Palisades.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I want to ask one question. Then we have mics in the audience on either side, and so we'll turn it over to the audience in a second. I want to ask a question because in order to create this amazing imagery, there had to be a lot of amazing technical advances, and I know from the motion control all the way from computer graphics, it was all kind of just built on the fly and built under deadline pressure. And I wonder if maybe Tim or Richard, Taylor or Edlin, or if you guys or John, if you guys can talk about that relationship between the technology and the art. It seems like there wasn't really a lot of walls at Abel's, and everyone could just sort of bounce ideas back and forth. And
Well, Tron was an interesting time because we were the only guys that did a piece of that movie that was vector graphics, and everything else was raster graphics, which meant that it wasn't 180 passes per frame with BiPAC mats. It meant you computed the whole frame and it was done. And you sent it to a film recorder and it was one exposure. So when we finished Tron, we were in this position of, holy shit, everybody else has this other technology. And, Doc Bailey and people like that were saying, yeah, vector graphics is the wave of the future. Let's coin the phrase that's going to make it come back or something. But, we really had to, create different technology. And so Bob had hired Michael Warman and Richard Hollander to write the first version of the rendering software, and that was the first thing we had. And then Roy Hall came later and built, the thing that actually became the software that did the TRW spot. It's also the same wave that we got hierarchical motion, because on the Evans and Sutherland picture system, you could only have 3 objects at any one time. And they didn't have any relationship to each other unless you ran a special subroutine program to make one take the motion of one and multiply another motion on top of that, so that it seemed almost like a joint, like this joint could go where this one was going, but that was the end of it. You couldn't do any more than that. And if you could only have 3 at any one time, a human body had all these other joints and fingers and forearms and all this stuff, so you could never put something together like that. So if we had to do Sexy Robot with vector graphics, wouldn't have happened.
I'll tell you, there was one major thing. The Abel Studio had worked graphically and all that, and the work that Kenny and everybody did on Tron was phenomenal. And I knew that design was going to work because, that particular section and the opening title thing. But when I was at Triple I before Tron, and I had created this sample reel there with this Adam Powers juggler character, and I was asked to bring that reel to Abel Studios. And I came in and showed that, and that was it was 82, it was about 1980. And I came in and showed that, and it was the first time that Bob Abel wasn't out in front, that the studio hadn't done raster graphics, Magi Synthovision, Triple I, digital productions in New York, and people were starting to work in that realm because they were very unique companies that did that. And it was a real wake-up call for the studio. And Bob, went into his office, closed the door, wept for a while, and then came back and addressed the company, did he not?
Yeah.
and
I
said,
remember that, yeah.
then what did he say?
He said, we've got a new world that we've got to enter, and we've got to do it yesterday. And so all power goes to everyone who can pull this off now, because we're behind.
And they just jumped into it and wrote their own software, Kovacs, and all you guys just really ripped.
From the designer standpoint, it was interesting because when the Benson and Hedges jobs came in and I was able to design whatever I wanted, I designed, as it turns out, something that we didn't have the tools to create. And so from a designer standpoint, it wasn't the technology always pushing the designers, it was also the designers pushing the technology. And so we worked as a dovetail, and that was part of the magic of the studio, is that we were always under one roof and we could see what each other were doing. And so I was just talking to Roy Hall just a few minutes ago, who I haven't seen since then. And what a pleasure to see these people. But the point is that I remember the meeting specifically when I brought the storyboards down that I did for Benson Hedges, and I was in the room with Bill Kovacs, Michael Warman, Roy Hall, and the rest of the software team that hadn't written this code yet for what was going to be raster. And they looked at each other when they saw these boards, and it was kind of like the snickering laughter, very nervous. But then they realized, well, we can do this. Let's just get to work. And so that was the beautiful magic of it, really, is that now they had a goal, and Bob was behind it 100%, and that meant all-nighters and everybody doing their thing. And so we'd be designing, they'd be designing, but in two different worlds and ending up creating something together.
I just want to say one more thing. I could be wrong about this, but the piece of film that Richard's talking about, the Atom Power film, to me what's important is that that film was done on the Cray, which at the time was, I think,
No, it wasn't done on the
it wasn't
Cray.
done on the Cray?
It was done on the Foonly.
Lee, yeah.
Ah, okay.
But it was.
I thought you guys did it on the Cray at
No,
Triple M.
Oh, no.
No, that was digital. No,
wasn't a cheap computer either. That was a one of a
the
kind.
Foonly was a one-of-a-kind, hardwired, single process. It was every CG company in the United States that was doing CG, and there was only about 4, NYIT, Magi Synthavision, Digital Productions, I think, in New York, and Digital Effects, sorry. And they worked on Tron, and Triple I. And each one of them had their own software and their own hardware. They were like hot rods. There was no Maya or Max or, it was all, one-off kind of stuff. So it was very labor-intensive, very difficult to do. There's some people in the audience here that have contributed so much. There's so many people here that I'm thrilled to see we all are. I mean, Ray Feeney, he can tell you as much of it as anybody.
Mike's out in the audience on the side if anyone wants to. Well, I'm sure nobody has any questions. I'm sure there's a lot of people who have answers out in the
Yeah,
audience. So let's hear some stories from the audience. If anyone wants to raise a
some
hand,
questions.
say a few words.
Oh.
The what?
The DOA.
I suppose
Omnibus.
we should keep it positive.
That's a story that, we all lived through that was really horrible.
Painful.
Was there anything good that came
No, nothing. Basically, what happened, I'm not kidding. Basically, what happened was, I was running digital at the time. I had left Abel's, and you remember, Philippe. And what happened was, the competition between digital and Abel and the people that were out there was really great, because we all wanted CG to make it. And at that time, like one of the things that the agencies or the studios would say to me is, digital is a bad word, and you should change the name of your studio because it's just a passing fancy. And computer graphics, is that what it's called? That's not going to go far. It's not going to last. So, you should really change the name of your company. And so we consider ourselves, we were always trying to do work as great as Bob Abel's. And one day, Omnibus, which was, are there people here from Omnibus? Okay, I got to be careful here. I will try to be very diplomatic. Oh, Ron. Okay, well, that's Ron. That doesn't count. So, not that it doesn't count, but Ron gets it. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Priscilla. Okay, so basically what happened was Omnibus came to our studio, to Digital Productions, and they said, we want to buy your company. And at that time, that was like, and again, no offense, but it was like J.C. Penney's or Target saying you wanted to buy Saks Fifth Avenue, and we're like, get out of here, no way. And way. because like most effects companies, especially CG companies in those days, we weren't making money. We were working on The Last Starfighter, and that was, didn't make any money. We were working on 2010, that didn't make any money. It was just very difficult in those days to do that. So when Omnibus bought us, they did it without me, and I was one of the owners of Digital, and John and Gary, who created the company, nobody knew. So it was, what do you call that? It's like a backdoor deal when they come in and they just buy your company. A hostile takeover, right. And, we didn't know. And so, obviously none of us were pleased that the Omnibus people came. And then they told me, Sherry, you not only have to run Digital, but now you get to run Omnibus. And they've got, a studio in New York and one here. Anyway, then they say to me, we also are thinking about buying Bob Abel's. And I went, no, this is ridiculous. You can't have Omnibus. It's bad enough that you bought us, but you cannot buy Bob Abel's. And at the same time, as some of you may know, I was thinking of leaving Digital and going back to Abel's. And so I was interviewing at Abel's without anybody knowing. So it was a mess, and I'm going, oh, great. You're going to buy Abel's, and this is going to be just chaos. And they didn't care. And what they decided to do was get rid of John and Gary, John Whitney, Sr., in my opinion, whose father invented computer graphics, the very simple computer graphics, and Gary Demos, who was an absolute genius.
We're going to get rid of Einstein?
Oh, yeah. And they did get rid of Einstein, dude. They got rid of us. They got rid of John and Gary. They kept me because someone had to run the studio. And then they said, we're going to buy Abel's. And it was just chaotic. It was horrible. And they lied. Ron, I feel terrible. And anybody that knows the story.
I was working for RA&A when I.
Okay, good. That's what I thought. I mean, I barely even remember you being from Omnibus. I really don't.
I was up in Toronto working for Bob, training on that.
Okay, all right.
But Ron had the best quote on that,
Which was?
that John Penny managed to get 3 companies together that no one would work with.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. It was so bad. It was such a disaster. And what they did, effectively, Omnibus, then they ran out of money. They got this, it's a very long story, but they got this, these backers that we all believed were going to save the company. And I'm trying to get these spots out. And all of the Omnibus people just left. They just left. And they left me running a company that is going out of business, but I have to get these spots done. And so the end of the story is that Omnibus just took off. And essentially by doing that, 3 of the most important companies, if you want to call Omnibus one of the most important CG companies, I will do that because I should, and we all were out on the street. It was horrendous, and it was the type of thing where it really hurt CG. And
Can I
it hurt
mention
all
the
of
good
us.
thing?
What, sweetie?
Can I mention the good thing?
Sure.
The one good thing is that the 3 companies, while they were separate companies, weren't talking to each other. They were like armed camps. You're the other side. I don't know you guys. I don't want to know you guys. When we all came
Yeah,
together
that's
in
true.
one place, everybody got stirred in the one big pot, and when it broke up, those little pieces went off in all directions, and groupings of those 3 companies ended up in each of those little pieces, or different combinations.
You're right. I mean,
So that was the good thing.
You're right. I
The
mean,
rest of it sucked. But that
it
was good.
really wasn't the people. It really was John Penny, who was the head of Omnibus, and his
Stock scam.
yeah.
It really was.
If I
But-
could,
but-
Stock scam, and also just to put a feather on what you just said. Did they ever find him?
No.
Go ahead, Bert.
Go on, Bert.
we have
Give
a
him the
mic
mic.
here. We have a mic. Take the mic.
All jobs that all companies were doing when Penny left were completed. 1, they were all done. The client got their material, and they got a finished product,
Right.
and they were able to show it. And people worked for 0.
0. We did not get paid.
There was no,
None of us.
There was no payment. All producers worked with their clients to say, we're here, we're going to finish it. That's the respect of the people to the work, not from anything else. And secondly, it was a stock ploy.
Yeah.
So they
And
went-
none of us knew it, of course. But
So, well, it's irrelevant.
yeah.
But they did finish the jobs, and that's kind of, I found that to be more of a miracle than anything.
That's a good point.
For the 16 years that Abel was in existence, it seemed like such an incredibly unique place. And I think you can tell that because so many of the people from Abel's, not only did you guys change the industry during that time, so many people from that company have gone out and had incredibly amazing careers, won all kinds of there's so many Academy Award winners on the stage right now. The legacy of Robert Abel still lasts to this day in the work that's being done. I mean, it's you can't really calculate the impact that this company had on the motion picture industry. And maybe we can. What was it? Let me ask John. You started as a camera operator, worked up to TD, and became a director there, and then visual effects, Academy Award-winning visual effects supervisor. What did you take away from your experience from Abel into the next part of your career, and what was it that
Well, I mean, it was an attitude that given enough time and money, anything could be done, and I mean, like, because you could really look at it, and we had enough talented people, enough talented designers, enough talented software programmers. We had our own machine shop. So if you could draw it up, somebody would machine it for you. I mean, we had, and then I can't say enough, we had like all these different director teams that some would be working very high tech and working in CGI, which, by the way, we were writing at the time, and sort of, okay, you're going to do that in vector graphics. Okay, fine. Now we're going to do this in raster graphics. Is the code done? Okay, well, let's use it. But there was like, Rod and Alan who would do cars, and they would just push cars and rock with that. And then there was Tom, and Tom, I think Tom Berenson right there. He was only happy when he got a job he didn't know how to do. You know what I mean? I mean,